Hey everybody, it's Eli again. So, you know, these shop updates I was going to try to do every Wednesday. Obviously, we are not on Wednesday today. Today is Monday, but we didn't do one this past weekend, so it's been over a week since the last shop update. So I figure might as well go through and kind of talk about a couple things that I'm doing. So this here is a hide that I'm going to be using for probably a set of reins. This hide has mostly been cut up, so as you can see all this down here, this is going to be button strings. So whenever I'm cutting my button strings out of a round or out of a section of hide, I typically use the section that's the shoulders. So I use the hips and the backbone and stuff across the hips for a lot of my heavier string, like my body strings, and then I use this stuff, which is much thinner, as my button string. So the difference between the two and how I cut them is this on my draw gauge is set to 3/8 of an inch. So I usually do a 3/8 inch wide soga for my button string, and then I do a 5/8 inch wide section for my body strings. And so I just have this at the right temper, and then I just end up coming through here and just use my thumb here to kind of keep the hide pressed down, and then away we go. And so this will be done all the way down till it's getting some either really sharp corners on it, or until the hide is mostly cut up. Pause it. Okay, so come close with the camera. Hazards of the job. So obviously I cut myself with one of these razor blades just yesterday, actually, doing this exact same thing. So obviously whenever you're working with razor blades, be very careful. I literally just touched the razor blade on here yesterday and it got me pretty dang good. So what we'll do here is whenever we get really close to like a 90-degree angle here, that makes it really difficult to cut well. So I'll just come in here and I'll just take off that little bit of an edge. And so I'll just focus on rounding it out a little bit more so we don't have such a acute angle that we have to deal with. So now that makes coming around this corner a lot more manageable. And then we'll just keep cutting like that and just keep cutting off our corners whenever they get really sharp. So like this corner now is pretty sharp again. So I just come here, I just start really lightly cutting on this, and then just round that out pretty well. And then I'm almost to the end of my razor blade here on my draw gauge, so I'll have to pop a new razor blade in here in just a second. But the name of the game with cutting up hides, I feel like, is moisture management as well as razor blade management. You always want to make sure that you've got a really nice sharp razor blade that you're working with. All right, thank you. All right, so these are now hanging up. So I do this with all of my strings, whether body strings, button strings. The Soga, as soon as I'm done cutting it, I get it off the hide, and then you can see in spots like this, that was a pretty good bend, and as it dries down, it starts to straighten up. So that's the purpose of doing this, is just to try to get the strings a little bit straighter before I come in here and temper them up and start cutting them into actual strings.